It's time for a Tennessee Titans all-season stock report. I'll tell you why Josh Whyle's stock is up and T'Vondre Sweat's stock is down on today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. It's time for a Tennessee Titans all-season stock report. We're going to go over whose stock is up, including tight end Josh Whyle, whose stock is down, including defensive lineman T'Vondre Sweat, and I'll tell you whose stock we just need to hold for a minute. Before I get into it, do need to thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. You're not going to beat that anywhere else. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Titans podcast. As a reminder, I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Nearly 25 years as a Tennessee Titans fanatic. I've covered the team for Sports Illustrated, USA Today, and I've been the host of the #1 Tennessee Titans podcast in the world for 5 seasons running. Shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you throw a thumbs up on the video. Show's always free. All I ask for in return is the press of a button. But with that being said, let's get into our off-season stock report. And we are going to start with the stock up players. And as I said, tight end Josh Whyle is at the top of the list. A couple of weeks ago, my everydayers will remember, I talked about the potential that Josh Whyle could be the Titans' starting tight end this year. He could be tight end one, not only the tight end that's just out there for the first play of the game, the starter per se, but also could be the tight end that gets the most snaps on the year. And Whyle has a great connection with Will Levis. That's important. They're very best friends coming in the same rookie class. Also, the reality is Josh Whyle's body type and Josh Whyle's skill set fits better as the #1 tight end in a Brian Callahan offense than, say, Chigakonkwo, who most of us has considered tight end one throughout the last 2 years. Going into this year, that was the expectation. Whyle is a bigger-bodied guy. He's put on extra weight. He can put his hand in the dirt, be an inline tight end next to the offensive tackle. That's just not what Chigakonkwo is as a player. He's more of that move tight end, that secondary tight end, that tight end that's behind the line of scrimmage, can come in motion. You can flex him out in the slot, create matchups, stuff like that. But it's not just me that has taken notice of Josh Whyle and his performance in the offseason so far. His offensive coordinator, Nick Holtz, talked about Josh Whyle's improvement, what he's done so far, and Holtz had this to say, quote, "He's had a great offseason. I'll start with that. Josh has really good ball skills for a big guy, ball skills. So that kind of target, especially in the red zone and on third down, things like that, he's more of a matchup problem than he is probably given credit for. So we'd love to get him in some of those one-on-one situations because he has so much height and he has really good ball skills." So it's clear that the coaching staff really likes Josh Whyle. His improvements, again, with the weight, just not being a rookie. Whyle has talked about it himself, how he feels better now being a rookie, not being in that first season, and how much of a difference it is. So I think that Josh Whyle is a guy who we hear the practice reports. Josh Whyle makes a big catch. Josh Whyle with the back shoulder fade. Josh Whyle adjusts to the ball. Like, Josh Whyle is having a great all-season workout, great all-season practice stretch right now. And then when you add in the skill set, the added weight, the fit in the offense, I think he's clearly a guy with his stock going up. But he's not the only one. And I wanted to throw in a couple of other names here as well. And we'll start with some names that maybe people don't necessarily think of right away. And we got to start with John Ojukwu, the offensive tackle out of Boise State, undrafted free agent from a couple years ago. Right now, Nicholas Petit-Ferrer, Jalen Duncan, hurt, not in the practices. We know that J.C. Latham is going to be on the left side to start out. And then Leroy Watson is a guy the Titans brought over via trade, but it looks like the Titans are more interested in having him as a swing tackle, as the number one backup tackle, who could maybe play some right, who could maybe play some left. But in the void left by NPF's injury and by Jalen Duncan's injury, whatever it happens to be, John Ojukwu is a guy who's stepped up, and he's been starting at right tackle so far in this all-season stretch. So a guy that has a ton of experience from college, did end up going undrafted, but some people thought he would be a late-round pick. He is a bigger-bodied, powerful guy who fits what Bill Callahan wants to do. If Ojukwu can continue to hold on to this spot, I think it would be a big surprise. And he's been talked about as a guy who has been stepping up, and you like to see it with the opportunities. Brian Callahan talked about that. So stock up for the former undrafted free agent out of Boise State, John Ojukwu, starting at right tackle right now so far. NPF obviously is going to come back and battle there, but really strong start from John Ojukwu. Outside of that, you got to give love to the rookie as well, Jaquan Jackson, the wide receiver. He's really been showing out at practice. I like the video that got posted online from Thursday's practice where they were doing the ladder drill. I think you have the ladder laying on the ground and you're bouncing your feet back and forth inside and outside of the ladder. It's a quickness and an agility drill. Jaquan Jackson was making people go like, oh, man, like you could hear it audibly in the video, people reacting to how fast his feet are. With his yards after catch ability, his not only short area quickness as a slot guy, but his long-term speed, and then what he can give the team as a returner, not only in kick return, but in punt return as well. Jaquan Jackson could be an important player this year as a role player, and I think so far this offseason, he's been impressive. So stock up for the rookie Jaquan Jackson, and that's going to put some pressure on some other guys on the roster who are fighting for a spot. We got to give the love to Sadiq Charles. I've talked about Sadiq Charles quite a bit. He's been starting at right guard and a power player who Bill Callahan said it was a no-brainer to go out and sign Sadiq Charles. Look, he's been up and down in his first 4 years, has some mental mistakes on his tape. He's not always sound in his technique, but 320 pounds, he's the biggest guard that the Titans have on the roster. He is more of a power player coming over from Washington. So I think that Sadiq Charles should get his credit for being a guy whose stock is up. We talked about Sadiq Charles as the third string right guard, who's kind of a dark horse to battle for a roster spot. And now he's turned himself into what might be the favorite to win that spot. So you got to give credit to Sadiq Charles as a stock up guy. Another couple of guys I want to mention on the defensive side of the ball. Jack Gibbens. I made the joke last week, but Gibbens is like that Simpsons meme where Mo throws the guy out of the bar, and then the next clip, he's right behind him already back in the bar. You can't get rid of Jack Gibbens, man. He's too smart. He's too tough. He's too instinctive. He knows the defense. He's out there telling guys where to be, what to do. He got the interception on Levis in practice on Wednesday, I think it was. Gibbens is a guy who is just super reliable, and he's not a great athlete by any means at the NFL level, but all the other things that he brings to the game, he continues to prove like, hey, you're going to have to knock me out of this starting spot. I'm not giving it away. So stock up for Jack Gibbens based on the expectation that he would be replaced easily by most fans coming in. And then Gabe Jeudy-Lawley, the cornerback out of Tennessee, he was an undrafted free agent. He's got great length, great size, plays great physical ball. He got a stamp of approval from Chido Awuzie at practice on Thursday. So an undrafted free agent, there are definitely spots up for grabs at the back half of the cornerback room after the top three. I mean, Gabe Jeudy-Lawley could be a guy to come in and take one of those spots if he continues this physical, impressive play. Obviously, Calvin Ridley, J.C. Latham are guys who deserve to be mentioned, but wanted to put the spotlight on some guys we haven't talked about quite as much. Now it's time for stock down, and obviously, I'm going to start with T'Vondre Sweat. Before I do, though, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. All right, guys, it's summertime. That means baseball, the NBA Finals, the NHL Finals, golf is in the best part of the season, and you can bet it all on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Look, FanDuel has stepped up its game. It was $150 the last few weeks. Now they're giving you $200 that you can bet on everything, from the Finals MVP to who's going to hit one out of the park. Again, new customers with a winning $5 bet get $200 in bonus bets. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. For me personally, the Cincinnati Reds, the hottest team in baseball, even though they lost on Sunday. Plus 225 to make the playoffs in the NL. Double up your money. I love that. And then the Edmonton Oilers to win the NHL Finals, the Stanley Cup Finals. I know some hockey fans will be triggered for me calling it the NHL Finals, but the Oilers are plus 202 to win that series, and they're only down one game as things stand right now. So make sure that you visit FanDuel/LockedOn, FanDuel.com/LockedOn. It's FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We're doing a stock report for the Tennessee Titans based on off-season practices. We talked about the stock up guys that I've noticed. Now we got to talk about the guys whose stock is maybe down. And at the end of the show, we're going to talk about people who may not be up or down. We're just holding on where they're at right now. Before we continue, do want to thank you again for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. The Titans have their last week of practices, last week of OTAs this week, the 10th through the 13th, so Monday through Thursday. I doubt they do all of them. I know that all of the practices aren't open to media as well, but I'll be covering all those practices with you guys when they happen, and we'll be talking through a bunch of great topics as we head into the summertime here. But obviously, when we talk about stock down, we have to start with T'Vondre Sweat. And I know that it makes all of you guys, not all of you, but it makes some of you so mad when I criticize T'Vondre Sweat. And I spoke on a podcast recently talking Titans, and the conversation of Sweat came up. And here's the reality. I've said it on this podcast as well. Here's the reality. If I told you guys that the Tennessee Titans second-round pick, before you knew who it was going to miss all of full-team OTAs and be out all of May and June and not play until training camp, you would be disappointed. You would be maybe not concerned, but you would be disappointed by that. That is not the way you want your second-round pick to start. You want the rookie out there as much as possible. You want a rookie to get as much experience as possible, learn the defense, learn his teammates, learn the coaches. Experience is so vital for rookies at this stage. Now, if I add in that the player is T'Vondre Sweat, who has conditioning concerns, who has weight concerns, missing out on all of this prime conditioning opportunity and practice opportunity, that makes it from disappointing to slightly concerning, especially considering how important Sweat is to this roster with how bad the interior defensive line is outside of Jeffrey Simmons. So there is no way that you could possibly be honest and not say that if you're doing stock up, stock down, T'Vondre Sweat's stock is down. Like, if you can at least admit to that, then I can't have serious football conversations with you, because you're obviously not trying to be honest about what's going on and give a real assessment of this start to his career. Let me say this. All right. Again, it doesn't mean that he's going to have a bad rookie year. It doesn't mean that he's going to be a bust. It doesn't mean anything like that. Okay, it doesn't. So we got that. But it's still a disappointing start. Okay? And the reality is, to me, I think that a lot of Titans fans refuse to acknowledge that it's a disappointing start, or refuse to admit how concerned they are by this, or how concerned they would be otherwise, because Titans fans are very defensive right now over T'Vondre Sweat. I didn't like the pick. I was very vocal, very out there. A lot of people got mad at me about my reaction, did not like it. But the national reaction to the T'Vondre Sweat pick was bad as well. So look, anytime you're the Tennessee Titans and you're a team that is typically disrespected by the national media, and you have people attacking one of your rookies or not being favorable to one of your rookies, you're going to get defensive. No matter what anybody says to you, you're going to be like, no, he's fine. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. Blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Titans fans are especially defensive about T'Vondre Sweat right now, because the negative reaction that came when he was picked by outside sources, and then me including. So I understand that there is an element of that where people aren't going to be able to be honest because they're extra defensive about the reaction to the pick, but there is no way that you can be honest about this offseason so far and not say that T'Vondre Sweat is in the stock down portion. And of course, let me know down below in the comments, who's your stock up, guys? Who's your stock down, guys? I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say down below in the YouTube comments. Hit me up on Twitter at TicTacTitans. Let me know how you feel. But you got to start with T'Vondre Sweat if you're talking about stock down. He simply hasn't been out there. And it's not just that he's at 0 and hasn't been able to go up. The missed opportunities with the conditioning and the practice time makes it negative. It goes down a little bit. It's not just sitting at 0. So had to start there. But also on the offensive line, if we're going to talk about John Ojukwu and Sadiq Charles being stock ups, we got to go with NPF, Dylan Radins, Daniel Brunskill, and Jalen Duncan as stock down. There's no other way around it. NPF has been out injured. I mean, he got injured in the middle of the season. Dylan Radins came back quicker from an ACL than it looks like NPF is going to come back from a shoulder injury. Like, what is going on with that? And for a guy who needs to put his best foot forward and get back on the right track with his career with a major chance to start at right tackle, like, this is very, very bad for him to miss all this time. Dylan Radins, we thought would have a great chance to compete for right guard. He bulked up a little bit. He's finally healthy, all that. And then it looks like he's been passed by Sadiq Charles already. Stock down for Dylan Radins. No other way around it. Even if I like Dylan Radins, even if I think he's the guy who should get the opportunity to start at right guard, if the team doesn't agree, they're the ones seeing everything behind the scenes. So for Sadiq Charles to come in as an outside free agent and jump over Dylan Radins, definitely stock down for Radins. And I'm a guy who likes Radins, and I'm being honest about the reality. Also, Daniel Brunskill. Brunskill said earlier, and we talked about it last week, Daniel Brunskill was asked to be the backup center for the Titans because they don't have one right now. And if they're asking him to be the backup center, that's not a good sign for him being considered a starting right guard. So where we thought Brunskill would be the favorite to be the starter or at least be the second behind Radins, it's totally flipped now to where Brunskill is a backup center and probably the third favorite option to start at right guard. He just simply doesn't fit what the new coaching staff wants on the offensive line as well. He is a slimmer guy, more agile than power. He just doesn't fit as well as Sadiq Charles or a bulked up Dylan Radins. But hey, at center where you could be a little bit lighter than guard, that would make a lot of sense. But we'll talk about some cut candidates in a few weeks or maybe later this week. Brunskill is at the top of that list, if we're honest. Saves the Titans $2 million. Doesn't really fit as a guard. Can he be the backup center? A lot of questions there. But also, Jalen Duncan. Look, I've never been high on Jalen Duncan. Not a fan of him coming out of college. I was down on that pick. I've been down on Monty Rice. I've been down on Des Fitzpatrick. I've been down on Jalen Duncan. I mean, sometimes it's just obvious to me when the Titans are making a mistake. So, whatever. Moving on, Jalen Duncan, I don't even expect him to make the roster at this point in time. He's been passed up by John Ojukwu. They bring in Leroy Watson. You know that they're going to keep NPF around. They're obviously keeping J.C. Latham. That's clear. So, I just don't think the Titans are going to have a fifth offensive tackle. I don't think Jalen Duncan's going to make the team. And no surprise to me, quite honestly, but maybe a surprise to some people. The last name that I want to mention here is Kyle Phillips. We talked about Jaquan Jackson at the start. Kyle Phillips may not make this roster. If the Titans keep 7 wide receivers, yeah, he may make it. But when you bring in Tyler Boyd, who is a full-time slot, and then you draft Jaquan Jackson, and he's been a guy who's been impressing, I mean, even Kearis Jackson might be a guy who's over Kyle Phillips right now. So Kyle Phillips definitely stock down. We haven't heard anything about being impressed by what he's bringing to the table or anything like that. So got to be a stock down for Kyle Phillips. But now let's talk about some players who I wouldn't say their stock is up or down. They're kind of just holding. They're in a holding pattern. So we're going to talk about those guys now. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. It's been an off-season stock report. Here, we talked about stock up. We've talked about stock down. Again, let me know your stock up and your stock down below in the comments. Now I want to talk about guys who are just holding. All right, before we do, though, do want to remind you guys that Locked On has launched the first ever 24/7 streaming channel for sports here on YouTube, and it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. So forget watching ESPN, forget watching Fox Sports. We all know that those stations have gone down in a major way. If you need, just some background noise, you want to get caught up on all of the sports news from the day, there is no better place than Locked On Sports Today. Again, it's 24/7 here on YouTube or on Amazon Fire TV. You get the top sports stories of the day from all the sports. You get local expert reaction from all of the Locked On hosts. You get coverage of every league from our national shows like Locked On NBA, Locked On NFL. It's the best possible alternative to, again, those ESPN, those Foxes that have really run their course for the sports fans. So make sure that you find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. But as for hold, Will Levis is at the top of the list. With what we've heard and what we've seen so far, it's not fair to say stock down for Will Levis. Yes, he was late on some throws throughout the week. Yes, he needs to speed up his progression time. There were some inaccurate throws, all of that. Yes, that's true. But that's not enough to go stock down here because Levis bounced back on Thursday. According to Jim Wyatt, was 7 for 10 in practice and went 4 for 5 in a period where the only, incompletion was a dropped pass. So Will Levis really turned it back on, and Brian Callahan talked about this. Hey, this is like the first time that we've seen that Levis has seen a lot of these plays. A first time that Will Levis has ran these. He's getting reps. He's banking reps. Hey, this is the first time I've ever run this play where the defense was in cover 3. Hey, now we're running that play, and the defense is in cover 2. Hey, now we're running this play, and the defense is in cover 1 man. All right. It's the first time that he's seen all these plays, not only to see the play, but to see the play against certain coverages. So Will Levis is going to take some time to acclimate. Will Levis is going to take some time to get used to what it looks like and what is the answer when the defense does this against this certain play. So it's going to take time. And Brian Callahan said by the time that he's run a play for the 5th, 6th, 7th time, and we're into the regular season, now he's going to have the answers. Now he's going to have the practice. Now he's going to have the repetition, and he's going to be more ready to go. So I'm not willing to say that Levis is a stock down guy based on some of the inconsistencies in practice so far. If we get into training camp and Levis is still struggling with some of these things, being late, being inaccurate, then we could talk about a stock down. But right now, it's just time to hold. It's just time to hold on that because Levis's responsibilities and the learning curve for him is going to be way harder and way more difficult than other positions because he's the quarterback, and it's a quarterback-centric offense, where the previous offense for the Titans made it very easy on the quarterback. You got 1 or 2 reads, play action fake to bite everybody. This is a totally different offense. So, of course, it's going to take him some time to get his feet under him. Also, got to say Chickaconquo. Now, the way that it went throughout most of the show is if a guy at your position is in stock up, you might be in stock down because that's just how this works, okay? Dylan Radins can't get a stock down if Sadiq Charles doesn't get a stock up. Those things are intimately connected at the end of the day. But I would say that Chickaconquo is a hold, not a stock down, even with Josh Whyle being a stock up. And this is why. Because I think it's going to be better for Chickaconquo to not be miscast in an improper role. Chickaconquo is not a wide tight end. He's not a hand in the dirt, one-on-one with the defensive end type player. He's never going to be that player. So putting Chickaconquo in a better role for him, a role that fits his skill set better, as a second tight end, as the move tight end, as an H-back, as a guy who can put out the slot, quite honestly. I think putting Chickaconquo in a better role and asking him only to do what fits his skill set will actually be more beneficial to him. I think that Chickaconquo could outproduce his first 2 seasons as a Titan, even without being the number 1 rep getter at the tight end position, just because the offense is friendlier to his skill set. He's going to be put in better positions to succeed than the previous coaching staff put him in. So I think Chickaconquo is a hold right now. I don't think there's any reason to have stock down for Chick. Also, you got to look at Peter Skoronski. We haven't heard a lot about Skoronski other than he's bulked up. He's obviously in better health than during the season last year, not being a rookie. If you listen to his interview on the OTP, no more rookies, or rookies no more, whatever it's called, Peter really dove in deep to, hey, you know who your friends are now, you know where you're living, you know where you like to eat, all that different stuff that's hard for anybody when they move to a new city, especially when you move to a new city. If you've ever left college and then move to a brand new city to take a new job straight out of college, it is hard to get acclimated right away. You feel uncertain. You feel uneasy. Those are just human being things more than football player things. Well, Pete had to deal with all that. So look, all of the attention has been on who's going to start on the right side. They brought in Lloyd Cushenberry. That's exciting at center, free agent. You draft J.C. Latham. All of the attention has been away from Peter Skoronski. So we haven't got stock. I think it's stock up at the end of the day, like is what it's going to be once we get pads on. But with offensive linemen, it's kind of hard to really know what they're doing. With Sadiq Charles and, John Ojukwu, they're obvious stock ups because they're being put in starting spots. J.C. Latham, we didn't know anything about Latham coming out of college, and then he's impressed us so far. So let's hold on Peter Skoronski right now. There's no reason to say stock up, stock down, anything. He's just in good health and looks much more consistent. So let's hope that carries over to training camp. And then finally, Tyjae Spears. The Titans brought in Tony Pollard, okay? And based on some of the videos that we've seen that the Titans have put out on social media, I've seen Tony Pollard in there a lot, especially goal line, red zone, situations like that. So I'm not willing to go Tyjae Spears stock down. I'm not willing to go Tyjae Spears stock up. I want to hold until we can see how those guys are used in a real game setting. Because right now, it's nearly impossible to know. It's all, again, I'm trying to look at the videos, see who's in there more, blah, blah, blah. And we see, if you've ever played football, then you know that when you go through individual drills or combined individual drills, where you have like your running back and wide receiver, your running back and quarterback together out there at the same time, going through an individual drill, but doing it with two positions. Like when you see Peter Skoronski and J.C. Latham working on their double teams together. It's individual period, but they're working together to do this. So typically the way it works is the top guys are with the top guys. Second string is with second string. So we saw videos where Tyjae Spears is in the backfield with Will Levis working on individual drills where you're handing off to the running back. The running back is doing some individual cuts, and then the quarterback rolls out and makes a throw. It's a combination of two individual drills together to simulate real games. Well, we saw Mason Rudolph with Tony Pollard. That leads me to believe that Tyjae Spears is the Titans starting running back, number one running back if we have to be technical. They're going to rotate so much that I don't think it'll really matter. At the end of the day, they're both going to be productive. They're both going to get opportunities. They can both do the same things, which is really important. But seeing Spears with Levis, but then also seeing some of those videos of the Titans doing 7-on-7 and seeing Tony Pollard in there, it gives you mixed reviews. So we're going to hold there. We're going to hold. I think if Tyjae Spears gave us a little bit more than last year, but not, full, insane, double production, I would still be very happy with that. So I'm not going to say stock up or down on any of those guys right now. Let's just hold and see what's happening in training camp and where their role is and where we go from here. But that is my all-season stock report so far. We're going to get more Titans OTAs this week. Probably not all four. I wasn't convinced that the Titans would even have this week of OTAs because a lot of teams will let players go early and get into their summer vacation. I get it with all the newness with the Titans. They need to have that last final OTA week, but obviously not every practice will be open to the media, but when it is, I'll make sure to have a full breakdown for you guys. We've got a lot to talk about as well, like who's been a disappointment so far, who's impressed, surprise starters, so much to discuss. Make sure that you stay subscribed or you get subscribed. It's just the press of a button, folks, and the show's always free, so not too much to ask. But with that being said, that is going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.